Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the best seat on an airplane. Now, you're getting a little glimpse back there of the whiteboard, but we'll get there in a minute. Obviously, there's a lot to consider when you're picking an aircraft seat. I mean, you got first class, economy, way in the back, close to the bathroom, the exit row seats, all that. So, I'm not going to go into those. We're going to talk about this from an aerodynamics perspective. And with that, let's jump on over to the whiteboard. Alright, so legroom and TV screens aside, there's a few other things that go into picking the best seat on an aircraft. So first of all, let's just break it down. We got first class, and then, economy, and then there's like the way back of the airplane. I don't even know what that's called, but it's the back. So we're going to get a little bit into aerodynamics here. Not super deep, we'll put that in a different video. But there's a few things that we need to know before we start talking about anything, and that is the center of gravity and the center of lift. So center of gravity is where most of the mass on the aircraft is located. You can find center of gravity for any object. And the other thing we need to know is center of lift. The center of lift is where all the lifting surfaces on the aircraft kind of funnel their energy. And it sounds a little confusing, but if we take a look at this picture over here, we can see that there's a center of lift for each wing. We're going to have some lift back on the elevators, and maybe there's some lift from the body, just depending on angle of attack. But anyway, we're going to assume all of those things. We're going to do all the calculations and see where all of those lift forces kind of collect, and that is going to be our center of lift. So basically, if we took this airplane and plucked it right at the center of lift, that's where all the lift forces would be acting. So that is important for two reasons. Firstly, this is kind of depicting a passenger airplane, and in all of those, the center of gravity is going to be in front of the center of lift, and that is so the airplane kind of flies like a dart. In a dart, you have a lot of the mass at the front, and there's the little tiny fins at the back. Now, we don't want it, obviously, to look like a dart, because then we would just fly kind of in an arc. But when you have the center of gravity in front of the center of lift, you have more stability and more control, and that's good for us, the passengers. However, something to note here is when the airplane is taking off or landing or doing any sort of maneuvers that involve pitch change. Pitch is vertical changes up and down. That is going to affect a few things, but that rotation is going to happen around the center of lift. So it's really important to know where the center of lift is on the airplane. Most of the time it's right by the wings, right by the main wings, and you can be pretty sure of that. So when the aircraft goes for a takeoff, it's got to put the nose up and then the tail down, and all that happens at the same time. But during that swing movement, if you're very far away from the center of lift, which is here, let's say you're at the nose, that nose is going to go through a really long travel when it rotates, and that's going to create a lot of force, and you'll probably feel a lot of that. So the pilots are going to get the brunt of that. Our center of gravity, let's say it's here. We don't really care about that. That doesn't determine seat position, but it's going to go through a little bit smaller because it's a little bit closer to the center of lift. And then let's say you have this little black dot, which is your seat on the aircraft. And let's say your seat is somewhere right here, right next to the wings. Because you're so close to the center of lift, your vertical change when the aircraft rotates to take off is going to be really small. That's this little black line that I didn't even put arrows in because I couldn't, it's too small. So from this perspective, during takeoff and landing, you want to be pretty close to the wing. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of rotational force, and you'll feel yourself either getting flung really far up, or in this case, you might just be tipping back a little faster than you would normally. So now if we look at this drawing, we're going to take our center of lift again, and we're going to pretend that we're sitting here. If we're doing any sort of rolling maneuver, it's not going to matter so much on these planes because they're really long and skinny. But let's say you had a seat way out here on the wing. I don't know why, but if you do any rolling maneuvers out there, as the plane goes up, you're going to feel that force. It's going to be flinging you around in that arc, and so you want to be closer to the center of lift. So it's going to save you from any undue forces. Now, we've not really ruled out first class. I mean, other than here, not such a big deal. Because you're just going to get that little bit extra rotational force. However, if we take a look here at this view, and we think about some events that might happen, turbulence, perhaps. When the turbulence comes over the aircraft, the turbulent air, it's going to affect each of the lifting elements. In this case, we're going to just talk about the main wing. There's a little bit of lift back here as well. But let's say we have a really big updraft, and that's obviously going to hit the whole plane, but a lot of lift is coming from the wing, so you're imagining a force going straight up through our center of lift. And because the aircraft is so long, if I hit that really fast, it's going to kind of create a whipping effect on either end. So if I punch up this side, both these, the front and the rear, might drop a little bit, and it's very minimal. I mean, you're not going to know it, but there is a little bit of give built into the aircraft frames for this very reason. So, turbulence, you're going to get some whipping effect if you're in front of the wing or behind the wing. Obviously, you'll still feel the turbulence when you're at the wing. Nothing you can do about that, but at least you won't get that whipping effect. So, looking back over here, we'll say, you know, first class is nice, let's be honest. I've never flown first class, but I've seen it. So let's just rule that out based on this. You're going to get a lot of the whipping effect, that sort of thing. So let's check out the back of the plane. If you're sitting behind the wing and behind the engines, there's the possibility that you're going to get a lot of turbulence coming off the wing itself. You're going to get noise from the engine, possibly turbulent flow from the engine itself hitting your side of the plane, and you're going to be getting a lot of noise. And you know, the further you get back, the further you are from the center of lift. So in this case, if you're way at the back and we get a lot of turbulence, it might even out a little bit with our rear elevators, but you're still going to get some whipping there. However, the big piece comes when we're doing turns. So we have this upper rudder here that steers the plane left and right, but during normal straight flight, if the pilot's got to do minor corrections or if we run through some turbulence, that turbulence is going to come through the whole plane and it's going to start wiggling at the back, kind of like a dog. And that is just where a lot of control surfaces are, so you're going to get a lot of the effect of the turbulence. Now, like we just said, because you're so far from the center of lift, that whole back section is going to be wiggling a lot. So you'll feel a lot of the turbulence back there. Even if there's no turbulence, you got turbulent air coming off of the engines, coming off the wings that may impact the rudders and the elevators back here. So probably don't want to sit in the back of the plane. Plus, then it takes you forever to get off the plane, and it's, you know, you don't really want to do that either. Which brings me to the conclusion that you really want to be sitting on the wing of the plane. Now, there's a lot of good options here. Obviously, there's the exit row seats, which I like because there's a ton of legroom. You could sit just behind that. Anywhere pretty much on this wing, you want to sit as close to the center of lift as possible. You're not going to get any rotational forces. You're not going to get as many of those. You're not going to feel as much vibration from turbulence. And you're kind of in the middle of the plane, so you get to get off relatively soon. So there's my quick analysis of a plane and where you might want to sit on it based on some aerodynamic properties. I'm not, of course, ruling out the fancy first class seats. You know, you can sit wherever you want, but from a forces perspective, you want to be right there in the middle on the wing. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that down here. And let me know if you have any questions or suggestions for future topics. Thanks for watching.